MAURA Murray was a 21-year-old nursing student who disappeared in New Hampshire on February 9, 2004. When MAURA mysteriously left campus and crashed her car, it was as if she'd simply up and vanished. 17 years have passed, and with no evidence, no clues, and no body, the question still remains. What happened to MAURA? So MAURA Murray was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts. On February 6, 2004, 3 days before she disappeared, MAURA received a phone call at work around 1 a.m. that her coworkers say really had her shook. In fact, her supervisor had to escort her back to her college dorm because he was worried about her. MAURA told her supervisor the call was from her sister, but that's all she really mentioned. 2 days later, at 3:30 a.m., MAURA crashed her father's new Toyota, which apparently cost thousands of dollars worth of damage to the vehicle. Oof, that sucks. But here's where it started to get spooky. On February 9th, MAURA emailed her professors and work supervisor at the nursing school that there was a loss in the family and she would be leaving town. But according to her family, this wasn't true. Everyone was very much alive and well. Wait, what? So MAURA had definitely made a plan to leave and even told people about it. But what was the real reason why? Around 3:15 p.m., MAURA was seen on security footage taking out $280 from an ATM and stopping by a bottle shop to purchase some spirits for herself. In this footage, she is completely alone. They presumed MAURA then drove north. Detectives didn't have her movements for a couple of hours until that night when she was spotted again. This time by a school bus driver who stopped to help her. The driver said he saw MAURA in her car, which she had crashed into a snowbank on the side of a dark, winding back road. Oh no, not again. Was it possible MAURA was going through a mental health crisis and that the crash was done on purpose? Or maybe this really was just an unlucky girl who couldn't catch a break. The driver asked if he needed her to call the police, and she said no. She told him that she'd already called AAA to come help her, so he left. But the bus driver knew this couldn't have been true, because he'd lived near that road long enough to know that there was no phone reception anywhere near MAURA's car. Dun dun dun! So, he drove the short distance to his home and called the police around 7:43-ish to let them know about the crash. Police arrived on the scene at 7:46, and by that point, MAURA was gone and the vehicle was left abandoned. They found red wine stains on the inside and outside of the car, along with some personal items. More importantly, what wasn't in the car was her phone, credit, and debit cards, which would never be used again. Oh no, I really don't like the sound of that. You know what else I don't like the sound of? There were reports from passersby that contradict each other. A few people say they saw her alone in the car, while others say they saw someone else with her in the car. The case is so mysterious, it almost feels like anything is possible. On February 10th, MAURA became an official missing person after a full 24 hours of not being seen or heard from by anyone. That day, MAURA's dad got a voicemail saying his daughter's car had been found abandoned. Family, friends, officers, and local wildlife experts began searching the area. A dog picked up one of MAURA's gloves 100 yards east of where her car had been found, but after that, the dog lost the scent. This led police to believe she had left the scene in another car. MAURA's boyfriend was interrogated, but they realized he was just as concerned and in the dark as everyone else, so he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. But MAURA's boyfriend did bring up something strange that happened to him on the night MAURA went missing. While on his flight to Haverhill to look for MAURA, he had gotten a voicemail while his phone had been turned off. The voicemail was a few seconds long, and it was only the sound of a female voice crying. And he described it as though someone was shivering and really cold, and then the message just ended. Police were able to trace this call to an AT&T calling card, and MAURA's mom was like, oh my god, I got MAURA 2 AT&T calling cards for Thanksgiving. So the police traced the calling card back to an American Red Cross in New Hampshire. And when they found this, they didn't believe it to have come from MAURA, so they stopped looking into it. But to this day, MAURA's mom is certain the police got it wrong, and that it was MAURA on the other end that day. How did any crimes get solved back in the day with such terrible phone tracing technology? Without any more evidence in the case, the police believed MAURA had either tried to run away or taken her own life, but her family really didn't think or want to believe that that was the case. MAURA's family believed that while she may have been distressed and going through a crisis, she was ultimately met with foul play. The FBI actually ended up getting involved with MAURA's case 10 days into it, and a second larger ground and air search was conducted using helicopters, thermal imaging scanners, tracking dogs, cadaver dogs, you name it, and still nothing. MAURA's dad, Frank, would return every single weekend to continue searching, and he would even get in trouble for trespassing on people's properties. A month after MAURA's disappearance, 17-year-old Brianna Maitland went missing 66 miles away. Brianna's car, like MAURA's, had been found abandoned on the side of the road. This was an exciting new potential lead for investigators who spent weeks extensively looking into both girls' cases. But the police found no links between the two. One last lead came in before the case went cold, and that came from a man named Larry, who had a brother with an interesting past. He told the authorities that he believed his brother may have had something to do with MAURA's disappearance. He then turned over a rusty, stained blade that he found in his brother's glove compartment. Larry said his brother had a criminal past, lived a mile away from the crash site, and right around the time the whole Murray case blew up, his brother and his brother's girlfriend started acting very strange. A few days after the blade was sent for testing, Larry's brother apparently scrapped his car, which, isn't suspicious at all. Regardless, the weapon was turned into the authorities. But not much came of it, and nothing has been publicly released about it. To this day, we still have no clue as to what was going through MAURA's head that night, as well as what in the world could have happened to her. But we've got some theories. The first theory, obviously, is that MAURA ran away. While it might not be the most exciting theory, MAURA was a real person with real issues, and people make mistakes. It came out later in the investigation that MAURA had had some run-ins with the law a few months before she vanished, which was highly unlike her. So one time, MAURA got caught for credit card fraud when she used someone else's card to order food to her dorm a few times. She was just kind of given a warning and put on probation. After 3 months of good behavior, her charges were dismissed. Like I mentioned before, MAURA had also crashed her dad's car the day before she disappeared. So MAURA's dad had actually driven out from Connecticut on the 7th to help MAURA go car shopping. And that night, he let her borrow his Toyota Corolla to go to a dorm party. At 3 a.m. that morning, she crashed it into a guardrail and caused a solid amount of damage to the body. Although no sobriety tests were administered that night, people suspect that MAURA had been drinking. Her dad said it would be covered by insurance, so he rented a car and flew home the next day. When that night, MAURA would yet again crash her Saturn sedan into the snowbank. And I can totally see how a 21-year-old would see no way out of this and try to flee the scene to avoid the consequences. But 17 years is a very long time to stay hidden without contacting anyone. While there have been reported sightings of MAURA as far as Canada, none of them have ever checked out or proven to be legit. MAURA's mother also passed away on the anniversary of MAURA's disappearance, and her family said if she was alive, she would have reached out after that. The second plausible theory is that MAURA expired from exposure to the elements. A lot of people believed that after she crashed her car, she did run off, but instead of running towards civilization, she ran off into the woods. There was a dense section of woods that ran parallel to the road where she had crashed. However, it was February, and the forest was covered in a heavy blanket of snow at the time. It's safe to assume if she did wander into the woods that she wouldn't have made it very far in those conditions. Despite the fact that this is plausible, the extensive searches and tracker dogs make a lot of people think it's unlikely. The third theory, of course, is foul play. A dark, quiet back road with no cell reception and a stranded, distressed, possibly intoxicated woman could have easily been a target for a lurking predator. MAURA's relatives believed it was possible a friendly stranger could have stopped by to offer help, and they could have taken her somewhere, especially if MAURA was worried about the police questioning her. Yeah, I'm with this one, especially because of the tracker dogs finding her scent and then immediately losing it a few yards down the road. It could be a little of both theories, and maybe MAURA wanted to run away when she was snatched up by a local loon. Speaking of local loons, let's jump to the theory of MAURA being taken to a location known as the A-frame house. The A-frame house was a nearby home that had begun to start a bunch of rumors. When the cadaver dogs searched the home in 2006, they got a big hit in the upstairs closet, confirming that at some point there had been traces of human remains in that closet. A sample of carpet from the home was taken for testing, but the results from that test have never been released to the public. And who did this mysterious home belong to? Why, none other than Rusty Blade Man, of course. That's right. Despite the fact that there was proof of remains found in the home and the samples of carpet had been taken for testing, there was radio silence from investigators on if anything was found in the home or if Larry's brother was ever seriously looked into. Does this strike anyone else as odd? Do you guys think there could potentially be police involvement or a police cover-up? Despite the fact that her case was moved to the cold case unit in 2009, with the help of true crime enthusiasts, podcasters, internet sleuths, and true crime cooking shows, it feels as though MAURA's case has never truly gone cold. In 2016, a private investigator, along with the hosts of the popular podcast Missing Maura Murray, were given permission by the new owner of the A-frame house to go inside and investigate again. When the trio got to the upstairs closet that the dogs got a hit from, they saw old red stains along the wooden panels inside. They took wood chips from the closet and sent them for testing, which proved that the stains came from a human. And not only that, but it came back as belonging to two different individuals. They turned this information into the police, but unfortunately the sample was so degraded that they weren't able to identify if the DNA belonged to MAURA. In April of that year, an excavation of the basement was performed, but ultimately nothing was found. Maura Murray's case has baffled the world for 2 decades, and I think what makes the case so difficult to understand is that no one knows where MAURA was heading that night or why. She'd been acting strange up until her disappearance, but no one could figure out why. Was she simply a teen going through a rebellious stage? Or maybe a depressed student who couldn't take the pressure anymore? Or did she know something that we still don't? And she packed up her dorm room and lied to her teachers in order to escape an unknown threat. Now that would be some spicy ramen. Thanks for watching.